When you take a look and see what was most successful in the 100 most successful startups, one of the things that pops up is that people who began these startups were true industry experts. What is industry expertise? Expertise is the number of mistakes you've made. That's what makes me a true world-class expert. I've tried things in many ways, in many forms, in many areas. That means I really understand the nuance of the market I'm in. I understand the DNA of that market. I understand the customer. I understand where things are. I understand where their pains are. I understand the thresholds. I also understand whether they talk about things that they like versus things that they would die to have. Meaning they would take their checkbook out and write a check right now for that product or service. That's expertise, and that's really important. If you don't have that expertise, you have to have something else. Maybe you find that expertise in some of the 3 critical elements of your management team. Remember the concept of the different people who play a role, a hustler, a hacker, and a visionary? You need to have somebody who's an expert. A technologist could be that expert. The hustler who goes out and talks to customers and understands them deeply and sells the product and builds the relationships, they could be an expert. The visionary who runs the business and talks about it and builds all the right people together, they can be an expert. Trust me, if you want to start a business because it looks cool and you don't have the expertise, there are 1,000 ways that you can get tripped up. Whereas somebody who's been there and done that and lived that is not as likely to fail. Let me say one more thing about being an expert. When you talk to one of the most prolific and capable investors in the world, a guy named Ron Conway, who invested in things like Google and Facebook and Dropbox, and you ask him, how do you make your investment decisions? He says, I invest in people who make sense. I invest in people who are passionate, who are smart, who are focused, who are dedicated. And they're experts in what they're building. Because to Ron Conway, as to me and many other investors, we know that you're going to go through a tough process as an entrepreneur. This is not going to be easy. It's not an easy path. There are going to be thousands of things that come up that will try to trip you. No matter how cool you are, at least 100 of them will trip you. And the question is, do you have the passion, focus, and knowledge to avoid being tripped up more than you need to? Do you have the capability to get up quickly when you're tripped? Do you pivot and avoid large holes that can trip you up permanently? Finding someone who really knows their stuff is key to whether smarter investors like Ron Conway invest. How would you rate yourself in industry expertise? An expert has the network and the industry connections. They know where the right people are, where the right resources are. They know where the right support elements are. They know the right regulations in that particular business. They know how companies and competitors think. When they encounter various problems, they solve these problems in the context of their own industry. Can you find the right people to build your solution? Do you know the right people who know the industry, who know the technology, who know the customer, and know the market? That's really important. This is particularly important for business-to-business startups. Experts have a competitive advantage. Lastly, as an expert, you know how to sell your product. You know how the market is and how it evolves. You know how to distribute your product. You know how to sell it. You know how the nuances of the customer in that market and the processes are that you need to meet. I can't tell you how many large businesses like Microsoft thought they could be in a particular business, like the telephone business, but failed multiple times because they simply didn't understand the nuances of the marketplace. They didn't understand how to solve the problems for their users. In that case, they built a computer solution for a user who was looking for a telephone solution. An expert here is quite valuable to me as an investor because I know they're going to figure out all the details and all the elements that get in the way of a business. They know how to extract the highest value in pricing, margins on the product, leveraging value, adding resources. They know how, where, and when to pivot. and they know where to access the resources to make a pivot effective. There are some cons to entrepreneurs who are experts in the marketplace as well. These are worth mentioning. A couple of them include the fact that often experts think they know it all. An expert can get in a rut. They have a difficult time thinking outside of the box. So actually developing disruptive innovation sometimes is limited because people are so expert. They've made so many mistakes that they don't think outside that process. It's also difficult when you're an expert to develop and to tap into something that's really important. It's a concept called the beginner's mind. Just to remind you, a beginner's mind means looking at an opportunity or a problem or a product from a very naive point of view. How would someone who just walks into the room see that product? Understanding the product and seeing the value of that product from a beginner's mind is important. As an expert, you may not be able to step back clear enough to see the dimension of what you're trying to present and deliver.